Commencing transmission. Engaging scramblers. Proxy chain initialized. And now, live from his hidden base at the Earth's core, the future ruler of Earth, Doomcock.
Greetings, villains, nemeses, and future subjects. I am Dicta Van Doomcock, the future ruler of Earth, and I have just seen Solo, a Star Wars story.
Oh dear. I was kind of hoping you'd skip this one, give your blood pressure a break. So, if you'll permit me, I'll bet I can summarize your review in less than 10 words.
Okay.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Solo.
Solo who?
Solo sucks.
How well you know me. Okay, people, let's get down to it. At what point does meh become suck? That's the question. When does mediocrity become so objectionable that it crosses the line into active and aggressive sucking? The answer can be found in Solo, a Star Wars story. It's kind of a puzzlement, this film. On the one hand, is it as awful as The Last Jedi? No, there's nothing in Solo that is as offensive, as repulsive, as violently objectionable as there was in The Last Jedi. And yet, as incredible as it sounds, I find myself hating Solo even more than I hated Last Jedi.
No shit.
Yes. Why? Because this film is the EKG flatline of a dead heart. This is the first Star Wars film to ever do the one unthinkable thing I never thought a Star Wars film could do. It bored me. It bored me shitless. Not merely for a stretch, like during all the Canto Blight scene in Last Jedi, no. Solo, a Star Wars story, is 2.5 hours of bland amateur theatrics unbroken by one single genuine laugh, thrill, or surprise. If Solo were a wall, it would be painted beige. If Solo were a cracker, it would be a saltine cracker without the salt. If Solo were an accountant, his name would be Joe, and he'd be the kind of guy to enjoy a beer on the weekend while watching golf in his underwear. And that would be his guilty pleasure that he would confess later in the week. In short, while there is nothing in Solo as repugnant as what that fuckhead piece of shit Rian Johnson did to Luke, nothing quite as stupid as Leia using the Force to fly unconscious through space, nothing as lame as Rose crashing into Finn to save him just in time for the Empire to kill everyone and then kill them both, I find myself hating Solo even more than The Last Jedi, because seeing Solo was like standing by the baggage carousel at the airport, waiting for your bag to come off the plane for 2.5 fucking hours, listening to Barry Manilow sing Perry Como's greatest hits. Only waiting for baggage is better, because they don't charge you to do it. And so, as time elongated interminably, and nothing interesting in the slightest happened to distract my inner child from asking, "Are we there yet?" for the umpteenth time, yes, my boredom turned to eye-rolling, to watch-checking, to loathing, and finally to the simmering hatred that I feel now.
Oh, that's crazy, baby.
I call it like I see it, and don't call me baby.
You're adorable.
What the fuck?
Hey, I've decided I'm a pansexual, just like Lando. I figure this is the new wave, and I want to catch it, sugar drawers, and ride that big, beautiful wave all the way to Hollywood. You hear that, Kathleen Kennedy? I'm ready for my close-up, Miss Run-of-the-Mill.
You have as much chance of being cast in a Star Wars movie as
Arvin Redenbacher had to be cast as Han Solo when he can't look, sound, or anything like Harrison Ford?
Fuck.
Want me to tell Kathleen anything when I meet her?
Yes, tell her she's fired.
Ah, you are so cute. But I digress. So you're telling me there was nothing in this movie that you liked? Nothing?
There was one thing I enjoyed. The main villain in this movie, Dryden Voss, he had a cool outfit, a kind of black suit cape that I thought was well designed. And that was it.
That was it? One costume.
That was everything I liked. Well, that and Donald Glover sounded very much like Billy D. Williams. That was well done. Now let's get to the things I hated.
Oh, so now it wasn't simply boredom. There were things you hated too?
Oh yes. There were plenty of things that I hated, but in a low-grade way. Like having a flea bite on your leg. It itches and it's annoying, but you can kind of ignore it. And as the movie goes on, you get another flea bite, then another, more and more movie, more and more little bites, until finally your leg is an inflamed, pulsing collection of bites, and all of a sudden you cross over from annoyed to wanting to kill every single flea on Earth. That's this movie. It annoys you in a low-key way until finally you're just so fucking annoyed and bored you just want to destroy everything and everyone. I mean, The Last Jedi was deeply, deeply offensive and troubling, and you despise it with the white-hot hatred of a billion exploding galaxies chock full of TNT. But with that kind of active hatred, you don't have time to get bored. I wasn't bored in The Last Jedi. But holy mass class, Batman, this was so incredibly boring, and I had so much time to dwell on each flea bite. Even though Solo is not as bad as The Last Jedi, I hated orders of magnitude more. Here's why. Let's get this out of the way right now. Arlene Redenbacher is every bit as bad a Han Solo as we feared. We got a sense of it in the trailers, but I can tell you, those 2 minutes spent with Akron Riddlecocker cannot prepare you for spending 5 long years with Orkin Maryberry. I mean, I grew a beard, I had children, retired, died, and was reincarnated as a coma patient during the course of this movie, largely because Errol Tallywhacker basically delivers every single line with exactly the same high-pitched, just graduated from high school tone of voice at exactly the same volume level, with either the same blank face, the same forced grin, the same over-the-top panic, or the same inexplicable panting as every other scene.
Did you say panting?
Yes, Harvey. There are several scenes where I noticed that Arlen Redenbacher was panting. This perplexed me because in most cases he hadn't actually been exerting himself beforehand. It wasn't like he'd been running or jumping or anything like that. But then I realized he was panting, see, in scenes that were supposed to have some kind of emotional charge. I first noticed it after, spoiler alert, the big train heist went to shit. Han dumps the stolen train car filled with valuable explosive loot while being pursued against Woody Harrelson's orders. So Woody and Han are standing on a cliff afterwards, and Woody chews him out, and I noticed that Han is kind of lightly panting in the scene.
Not like Rocky after the training montage?
No, more like after walking up 5 flights of stairs. But you know, he's just standing there, talking to Woody Harrelson as Woody chews him out, and I wondered what the fuck, and then it hit me. He was trying to act intense. And then it hit me, oh, holy shit, this was the acting coach's doing, or Ron Howard's doing. In other words, they were so desperate to get Arlen Rabble-Munchin to seem intense, they told him to pant a little, hoping to hype him up, to simulate emotional engagement. But it didn't work. It just made him seem like he needed Spiriva. It was so bad. And I kept noticing it in dramatic scenes, like, spoiler, when he shoots Woody in the chest and Woody is dying. Han cradles him with regret, and Han is lightly panting. Why? All he did is shoot the guy. It's not like he worked him over with a baseball bat for 10 minutes. Why? It's because Arnie Schillenfeister can't act. Whereas Harrison Ford can convey intensity with just a smoldering look, Aaron Mocker has to be kind of panting to convey that he's really feeling something, like serious. People, at one point he sounded so young and awkward, one thought came into my head, Greg Brady. I shit you not, It's not like I was trying to find a funny insult just to be a dick, as is my wont on such occasions. No, it just came to me unbidden. Greg Brady in Kathleen Kennedy's emasculated classic Han Solo the movie. He seems like a kid in a high school play.
That seems kind of excessive, doesn't it?
Maybe so. All I can tell you is I kept thinking he sounds like Greg Brady trying to do a Han Solo impression. Then I started thinking about the Bradys singing It's a Sunshine Day with Arlen Motor Scooter in a flower print shirt and polyester flares. I couldn't shake it, Harvey. I'm just being honest. Without us buying into Han Solo, without us believing this younger version of Han could possibly become our childhood hero, Solo, a Star Wars story, is stillborn. He's the linchpin of the whole affair, the hook Kennedy has hung her Star Wars coat on, and if you don't buy into him as Solo, the whole thing is a damn waste of time. We don't get excited by all the obvious pandering and fan service because we know this isn't really Han. We never really feel the slightest bit of alarm when he's in danger because who cares if Greg Brady gets shot by Woody Harrelson, really? And we never feel even the slightest romantic spark between Khaleesi and Greg Brady because she's been mounted by the stallion of the world and Greg has to be home by 11 to finish his homework.
So, Irvin Curly Swanger Stein left you unconvinced?
Chronically unconvinced. Every time he tries to make a Solo-like smartass quip, it comes off as petulant and strained, whereas Ford would have crushed it effortlessly. He seems like the handsome guy in Drama Club performing a version of Star Wars that his nerdy math student friend wrote during study hall. Arlen Redenbacher is just reading lines, sometimes reading lines with a grin, sometimes reading lines terrified. Yes, he has terrified mode too, never vaguely alarmed or cautious, either smug, neutral, panting, or absolutely terrified, no middle gears. In short, Arlen Redenbacher is in no way convincing as Han Solo. Ultimate fail here. Arlen Redenbacher is Han No-No. And Lando? As I said, Glover sounds convincingly like Billy D. Williams and does a creditable job with the painfully mediocre script he's been given. As far as the pansexual shit goes, Lando's flirting was low-key, but was there. Lando tells Han with a smirk, "You're adorable." The SJW Bot 2000 tells Lando, "Stop flirting," with Han. Lando tells Han, "Buckle in, baby." Han calls Lando baby later in the movie. That's about the extent of the flirting. It would have been a subtle if off-putting thing if John Kasdan hadn't shot his big mouth off about Lando being pansexual, but as it is, once again politics leaves a sour taste in our mouths. It would have been mildly off-putting, as his manner is definitely pansexual, but absent that gasoline on the fire courtesy of John Kasdan, it wouldn't have been so bad. As for the rest of the cast, Emilia Clarke plays her role like a vanilla milkshake. Just okay. Khaleesi in space. Woody Harrelson plays Woody Harrelson, saying the role of Woody Harrelson playing a pirate. The SJW Bot 2000 is constantly bitching and snapping at everyone, a grating one-note performance. Nothing remarkable or interesting here. And now I'll move on to the various flea bites themselves. The dice we made fun of in our Solo video, Harvey, are presented front and center right away, as predicted, trying to retcon them into being so significant in an effort to make their inclusion in The Last Jedi seem not quite as pathetic. Han is an orphan straight out of the musical Oliver, and so is his girlfriend, the Khaleesi. They flee in a boring, predictable, by-the-numbers speeder chase. They get separated. She has his dice. He swears he'll come back, but whether for her or the dice is unclear. Another flea bite. Turns out Solo is not Han's last name. It was given to him when he joined the Empire. Yes, that's right. Independent scoundrel smuggler rogue Han Solo was named by an Empire officer, and he joined the establishment, fighting for the Empire. Lovely. Yet another shot at a beloved classic character by Kathleen Man-Hater Kennedy.
Oh, here she comes. Watch out, boys, she'll freeze you out. Oh, here she comes. She's a man-hater. Oh, you.
That's right, Harvey. Kathleen never misses the chance to take a shot at a George Lucas character. Oh, how she must resent George Lucas. All those years working for him. She must have really hated his guts to do this to his baby. So, Han hooks up with Woody Harrelson and his crew in the middle of a battle. They're pretending to be Empire troops pulling some kind of job. He tries to join them. They turn him in as a deserter to the Empire. He is thrown in with a monster who turns out to be Chewie. Han somehow knows how to speak Wookiee, don't ask me how. They get out together and run after Woody. Woody and his partner, the monkey spider, like his pluck, so they pick him up. Monkey Spider adds a flea bite by making a crack about eating roasted Mynock on Arnimia. More empty name dropping and pandering. Of all the edible creatures in the galaxy, Monkey Spider happens to mention the one animal we know about, hoping we'll smile and nod and say, "Oh yeah, this is neato, Star Wars, right?" As if. So a train heist goes bad. Woody's woman and Monkey Spider are killed by rival raiders trying to steal the explosive shipment they're stealing. They have to go beg forgiveness from Dryden Voss, the representative of the Crimson Dawn. They go to his huge ship, and it has the cheapest, ugliest, tackiest, least imaginable nightclub I've ever seen, worse than on Battlestar Galactica on ABC in 1978. And we're forced to listen to a hideous song that makes you long for the scabrous stylings of Cy Snoodles. He was a musical genius compared to this shit, even on the special edition. Khaleesi turns up there in that bar, working now for Voss. They hatch a plan to get unrefined coaxian ore from under the spice mines of Kessel to pay their debt to Voss off. Khaleesi delivers Han and Chewie to the Kessel guys in chains, offering them as slaves as a decoy. Where have we seen that before? And Lando wears the same helmet he wore in Return of the Jedi. More pandering that makes no sense, because that was a helmet worn to blend in with Jabba's palace guards. So why would he just have it lying around in his wardrobe years before Return of the Jedi? Just more empty fan service, like the Mynock thing. One gigantic infected flea bite concerns the Falcon reveal itself. It is very offensive that when they finally show us the Falcon, they blare the Star Wars theme. It just felt very forced and inappropriate. That theme belongs to Luke and Ben, but playing it like that made it feel like it was the Falcon's theme. And yet again, in a comically overwrought piece of obnoxiously blatant fan service, they blare the full Star Wars theme when Chewie finally sits next to Han in the Falcon cockpit for the first time. It was eye-rollingly painful to see just how desperate in post-production these hacks were to salvage this dreary mess of a film and sell it to gullible fans. They sneak in stupid fan service everywhere they can, and it still feels about as Star Wars as an episode of Young Sheldon. Another flea bite. Why is the interior of the Falcon so murky and dim? It wasn't that way in the first movies. It shouldn't be that way now, except for the whole film being run through a wash of blue dye, prune juice, and the salty tears of fans. The whole movie is a bland and dreary blue-gray-brown affair, and there is no bright spot in Solo, metaphorically or physically. It's just another drab, ugly little movie following, for some unknown reason, that Zack Snyder aesthetic. Zack Snyder hates most colors that humans can naturally perceive. Zack Snyder never met a rainbow he didn't want to mangle. Big dramatic scene, the uniformly pushy and unpleasant social justice warrior bot 2000 dies in Lando's arms, a silly scene. Her motivator is obviously intact because she's still talking, so what's the big fucking deal? Fix her up, then plug her back in so you can keep having sex with her, you pansexual screwer of toasters. Yes, it's implied that Lando is banging his robot. Well, banging a robot has its advantages over banging a woman, I guess. At least you can tell she's done when the toast pops out and she goes, ding. There's this very silly subplot about the Kessel Run where you have to navigate through a tunnel in the Maelstrom Nebula. Outside this tunnel, there are monsters and all sorts of asteroids to collide with, which begs the question, what keeps them out of the cleared tunnel? This is a big cloud in space. Why is it all these hazards are in the cloud, perfectly stationary, but never float into the lane? How come the giant monsters out there never reach in and grab ships in the tunnel? A force field, maybe? Then why can ships just fly right through the field and go into the cloud? Were Lawrence Kasdan and his sonny boy John paying any attention at all while writing this mess? And the whole plot to steal shit from Kessel is silly. They want to steal unrefined coaxium ore from under the spice mines and run it fast to a refinery before it blows up. They encounter completely ineffectual resistance, and so it begs the question, if this is known as the Kessel Run, does that mean Kessel gets robbed like this all the time? And if Kessel gets robbed exactly like this all the time, then why don't they have better defenses? Remember, their haste springs from the volatility of the ore they're stealing. It can explode if they wait too long. So what? Does everyone steal that ore and need to make the Kessel Run to keep from blowing up? It's just so fucking slapdash. Everything about Solo, a Star Wars story, is. The second worst part of this movie is how Han gets owned by Khaleesi. I thought Han was supposed to be the hero of this movie. Yet look what happens in the final scene. In the final scene where Han, Khaleesi, and Voss confront each other, in short order, Han gets betrayed by Khaleesi, who turns him over to Voss. Han gets beaten by Khaleesi in personal combat when he tries to fight back, and then Han gets saved by Khaleesi when Voss is about to kill him. So, Khaleesi outsmarts Han, beats Han up, then saves Han all in one scene. Han is totally pwned by Khaleesi, who escapes with the big ship. So once again, Kathleen Kennedy degrades a treasured male character, even in his own movie, having him get beaten up and totally pwned by a woman. Another Mary Sue beats Han in his own movie. But even worse than that, Kennedy has one more dagger to stab in Han's back, emasculating him and betraying his character. At the end of the movie, Han turns over a vast fortune in coaxium ore to the band of marauders who bedeviled him throughout the movie so they can fight the Empire. Now think about that, kids. The ultimate betrayal of the character. At the end of this movie, Han turns over a fortune that would have allowed him to retire. Han would never have to hustle again. But no, here he overcomes his greed and selfishness to make a sacrifice to support the rebellion against the Empire, just like he did at the end of Star Wars.
Wait a minute, so he does here what he does at the end of the first Star Wars?
That's right.
But if he's already a good guy at the end of Solo, then why is he back to being a ruthless pirate at the start of Star Wars? I mean, why is he relearning the lesson he already learned?
Because, like Star Trek Discovery, Kennedy and her band of hack butchers are plundering the past in order to cast it aside. Forget logic, forget the integrity of the character and the franchise. It's a cheap, easy ending to a cheap, easy movie. And so she does it not giving a shit that it completely undermines Han's character in the original movie, making his evolution in Star Wars and his noble act of selfless bravery redundant and completely irrelevant.
That bitch!
Yes, Harvey, that bitch indeed. And so, just as Luke was pissed on in The Last Jedi, so too is Han's legacy drenched in a pool of lukewarm piddle. Every true fan can see that. So where do we go from here? I've had defenders of this movie attempting to attack me on Twitter, and their attacks come down to 2 talking points. They call me a hypocrite for calling for a boycott but going to see the movie, and they claim I'm unfairly biased for slamming the movie before I saw it. These attacks speak to their inability to recognize nuanced positions, a common failing among Disney Star Wars defenders naturally, because if you like what Kathleen Kennedy has done to the franchise at this point, you either do not have even the average intellect needed to see how Kennedy has insulted and diminished the original Star Wars, or you simply don't give a shit about Star Wars. Under Kathleen Kennedy, Star Wars has become a hollow shell of its former self, a cruel, shambling, undead mockery of everything Lucas achieved, the reanimated corpse of our murdered childhood dreams. I called on the boycott not to attack Solo as an isolated effort, but to save Star Wars. I want to hit Disney in their bank account to protest the ruination of the franchise as a whole. I want Solo to tank because I want Disney to feel our anger about how Kennedy has run Star Wars into the ground. Unless we make Disney pay, nothing will change, and we'll keep getting more Last Jedi, more Farce Awakens, and more Solo, a Star Wars story. Obviously, Doomcock reviews films, and to review a film, Doomcock must see the film. Duh. Though I'm not free to boycott the film because I'm a film critic and I'm obliged to do it, most of you are free. And there's no contradiction in calling for people with free will to boycott Solo. As for my public prediction that Solo, a Star Wars story, was going to suck, well, hath Doomcock not eyes? If you prick him, doth he not bleed? Newsflash, people, I saw the trailers. They were horrible. I know the development history. It was a shit show. Doomcock doesn't pussyfoot around. Doomcock doesn't wheedle and hem-haw. Doomcock doesn't do namby-pamby. I'm not going to pretend to be blind, deaf, and dumb to play the neutrality game that so-called establishment critics do. Doomcock reviews and evaluates every stage of production rumors, trailers, previews, and the film itself. If the trailer is so bad that it's nigh unto inconceivable that a good film will arise from it, I'm damn well going to make that prediction ahead of time. But I've always added, whenever making such a statement, that I will definitely be honest in my review. Without a doubt, if Solo pulled off a miracle and turned out to be a fabulous film with shitty trailers, Doomcock would gleefully have generated controversy by going against the grain and proclaiming that everyone was wrong. The movie is brilliant. Imagine the hits I'd get from astonished people, the controversy I'd generate. That I'm not saying that. That essentially I'm going with the grain and agreeing with most honest non-establishment critics here speaks to my honesty. This is just another nail in Solo's coffin, albeit one of the shiniest, coolest nails of all. A Doomcock review is like a ray of sunshine falling on Mount Doom in Mordor. Doomcock isn't very nice, alas, but he damn well is honest. Look at my Last Jedi review. I took pains to point out the things in that movie that were good. There were a few things there worthy of praise, and Doomcock diligently praised them despite hating the hell out of that abomination. So too in this review, I have pointed out the 2 or 3 things I kind of liked. And Deadpool 2 completely lost me in the first 30 minutes, and yet it won me back by the end, and I reported that faithfully as well. And don't get me started on Infinity Wars. Doomcock went against the grain on that one and took his lumps for it. Doomcock is honest, more honest than his Reylo fanboy critics who are incapable of understanding nuances of language, logic, and intent. Han is told by Woody Harrelson, trust that everyone will betray you and you won't be disappointed. The same could be said now of Star Wars movies. I'm sick and tired of trying. I've given this franchise a fair shake, but if there's one thing that should be abundantly clear to any rational Star Wars fan, it's this. Disney's Star Wars fans demonstrate conclusively that Disney has no idea how to make Star Wars films. They can't do it. And I blame Kathleen Kennedy. Her idea of fun is alienating old fans, shitting all over the original films while shoving SJW propaganda down our throats. And so I ask the same question I'd ask an abused spouse. How long are you going to take this abuse before you understand that Star Wars doesn't love you anymore? Star Wars used to love you, but then the pushing started, and that led to punching, and that led to beatings, to Luke being a coward and a deserter, Han being a deadbeat dad, Leia being whatever the hell they degraded her to in the end. I know you stick around for the sake of your children. I mean, your childhood memories. But don't you see abusive Star Wars is only hurting those childhood memories? It is time for the hurting to stop. Boycott Star Wars until Kathleen Kennedy is gone and that galaxy far, far away comes back home. Ha 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 ha.